let's talk about work pressure and burnout, okay? So generally in this day and age, all of us are caught up in this hamster wheel, okay? And the hamster wheel, as much as for some of us is from 8 to 5 in terms of work, or 8 to 8, or sometimes it's 8 in the morning till 8 the next morning, and you kind of grab a shower somewhere in between, do some food stuff, maybe hang out with the family for 2 seconds and go back into the work. This is the nature of the way we work nowadays. I can guarantee you all of us at some level are being pressured to work hard, all right? And the reason we work hard is because we're in a highly pressured environment. Everyone's got to deliver. What we got to deliver on is the financial bottom line. Every company is pushing you to achieve your absolute in terms of quantity, quality, push out those reports, KPIs, outcome driven, results driven. You got to meet your targets, you got to meet your sales, you got to meet your commission, okay? And as much as you're saying, no, I can't work this rate, the problem is you're driven by a financial bottom line. Companies want that particular target. If they set the target and you met it by October, given it the year end was December, they realize that they set the target too low. The person who set the target probably is going to get fired, okay? And as much as you hit the target in October, they're going to push you that you achieve much more in December. And as much as you achieve by that year, 150%, guaranteed next year's target is not going to be at that particular figure. It's going to be 200, 300, 400%, okay? Taking into account inflation and everything else under the sun, that you kind of still being stretched absolutely. So what's interesting is that we all endeavor for some type of balance. We endeavor to some type of rhythm or kind of get into the flow of things. But no matter how you get into rhythm, flow, they still demand more of you. Now, what's interesting, some of us may remember, our dads worked long hours as well, okay? But sometimes they would work till 5 or 6. In fact, people tended to work from 8 to 5. In fact, probably stayed at a company for not just 5 years, stayed there for 10, 20, 30 odd years. There was an expectance of loyalty. And what happened over time, as much as they worked from 8 to 5, slowly over time, you were expected to work from 8 to 6, 8 to 7, 8 to 8, long hours. Other cultures, by the way, like in Japan, they tend to work long hours. There's a lot of loyalty to their companies, okay? And what we're finding in South Africa and in the Western world, we're not necessarily loyal to a company. Why? We are driven by a different thinking that we got to satisfy ourselves, not some company. But the harsh reality is, even when you work for yourself, you are working long hours. Everyone's at the top of the game in terms of producing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there is no gap. Everyone feels they have to work at that level, because if you step back and say, I will work from 8 to 5, or God forbid, 8 to 2 in the afternoon, you're going to be behind in terms of your market share, opposition, competitors, everyone else in the marketplace. We are pushing hours. That's why there's books like The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss is a bestseller, because we all would love to work 4 hours a week, okay? And as much as you think he's going to give you, well, to some extent, maybe one would argue he does, some kind of deal that's going to go viral. He gives you a way of structuring your week that you get others maybe to do the work for you. Someone in China or India, you phone up and says, show me where the nearest laundromat is, and they check on Google Maps or something to that extent. Yes, it gives you far more advice than that, but we all want to work smart and achieve that space. The problem is we all burnt out working those long hours. And what happens is, what is the criteria for burnout? It is the fact that you are all emotionally exhausted. The fact that you're not working at the level that you used to. Your professional level of delivery is not at the pace it was. Why? Because over time, over the years, you have become far more deficient in your ability to produce. The third level is the fact that you feel detached, cynical, completely alone in terms of where you are. All right? Everything's happening like in another world, it seems. You are just in your own world, own space, not connecting with other people. And those are the 3 fundamental criteria to burnout, which the World Health Organization accepted as an illness in the last few years, in fact. Okay? And what is happening, we are seeing far more people in that space. Why? Because we're all on this hamster wheel, this bandwagon that we running till the petrol literally gets exhausted in our tanks. And what then happens is you and I then resort to substances or vices to keep us going. All right? Because the alcohol, the substance or the alcohol, if you think of it, becomes a lubricant to keep our bodies going, right? It switches you off. When you get home at night and you want to sleep, you know your mind is still racing, thinking of the report you got to deliver on. So you are using to switch the mind down. Then you get up in the morning, then you got to take an upper. Okay, some of us take some really crazy uppers, but generally, societally, we accept caffeine, coffee, tea, and sometimes we'll take up to 5 cups a day, and then we'll get to energy drinks to keep us going. And so much as we're taking uppers, we then get back in the evening and we're getting into the downers again. And on a weekend, you got to take the numbers. I'm just made that word up. Something to numb us, right? Why? We got to get going. And it doesn't just have to be substances. It can be vices, gambling, anything and everything. Why? We want to switch off from that hamster wheel we've been on 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Some of us probably work on weekends. At least, forget weekends, on Christmas and New Year. And we become so attuned, that machine, that what happens is when we slow down for a moment, we're like in a space of vulnerability. We're not too sure. And we don't like that because now we're exposed and the body or the mind saying to you, what the hell, why are you on this hamster wheel? Get off it. But then we all justify it because this is what I've got to do. I've got to meet up with society's expectations. I've got to deliver for my partner, the kids, the dog, the extended family, and the tax man. And that's what we're all doing. And then what the substances also help us is achieve a space of where we just numb to consider the fact that, hey, maybe I need to change my lifestyle. So we're all working damn hard. And yes, the colloquial and the easy thing to say is work smart. But to take that step into smartness is challenging because being smart in the way you work means you must not follow the crowd anymore. And the danger with that is fear, because you're going to be criticized and judged. And human beings, we want to be part of the crowd. In fact, using substances as well, you mentioned the word triggers, and the old people you used to go back to, you feel you're going to be judged and criticized because those were the guys you hung out with. They've seen your dark side. Now you're going to try and be light and be someone different. Who the heck are you? All right, what made you so different? You're just like one of us. And that story, they're not necessarily telling you, but it's playing out in your mind. And you now got to find a new group to hang out with. And they are the ones who go to bed at 10 o'clock in the evening. I mean, what's wrong with them? Okay? Your party only started at 10 o'clock and ended on Monday morning. Now you got to change your tune. And you're going to be lost and vulnerable while you're trying to find your space. So burnout and work pressure, I'm going to say, is inevitable. You're going to be faced with it. And what you have to do as a solution is find why you're working, what you're working for. You might say, geez, what's this guy talking about? But there's a book on it by Simon Sinek. It talks about the why, right? And you got to question why you're doing it. And we hate asking that person, but you then recognize why you're doing what you're doing and what you're endeavoring to achieve. If you're doing it as much as you're doing it for the love of it, I don't know how many, yes, maybe for the love of it in the first year or 2 or 3 if you're lucky, but after a while, that hamster wheel seems to grind on you. It gets too much. And then you got to question, wait a minute, is this what your life is about? Because what you tend to do with this workspace, it creates this monster and it just kind of gets too much for you. And you got to step back and recognize what you got to do. And when you ask the question why, you introspect and reflect. And you if you go deep within, you actually have an answer, a solution to changing your life and how you see the work environment. Rather than competing on comparing yourself to others in your workspace, you then create your own space to work in. What happens is we get caught up in work pressure because there's a scarcity of resources, time, money, but we have to tap into the abundance and get into a space that allows us to deliver far more than the original workspace offered. So you got to change how you see it. And it means going deep within yourself and stepping off that hamster wheel of sort and shifting your direction in where you're going with your work. Rather than seeing yourself in the local environment, you got to see yourself in the international environment. Where do you fit in? You got to make it happen for yourself. So you determine your work hours rather than someone else determining your work hours. At the moment, in the bad old days, good old days, if someone wanted you to work, they probably caught you, put a noose around your neck or a chain and made you work. Okay? And some of us, most of us may argue today is no different. Except they make you sign on a dotted line. Okay? And then you got to work until someone might pitch with a box and says, we walking you out of the building. Okay? And the whole thing is, yes, you may not be a slave, but in different ways you're a slave because you sell your time between 8 and 5. I know nowadays we're all doing is Zoom online and you just got to pitch and be there even though you're completely detached from the meeting and you're just like, nowadays people put themselves on mute and the screen is dark and you're hoping, my God, no one will notice that I didn't wear any pants. Okay? All right? And the whole thing is it's gone to such a level. Why are you there? Because you got to please someone on the other side of that screen. And if you really ask yourself, why are you there? You're doing it because you're obliged to, because they own you from 8 to 5. And it may sound harsh, and we all got up in this environment of vision and mission and team building. But look at where you are. What are you doing? And you got to create it. You have the skill, but we fear to face up to the strength within us. You determine your work. Nowadays, the definition of success in work has changed from the past. Previously, maybe success was working hard and then you'll achieve. You work hard. All of us work hard. The whole thing comes down to something more. What it comes down to is looking within yourself and creating the time. Maybe let's look at success differently. Success is the time to do whatever you want to do. Because most of us don't have the time to do whatever I want to do. I still, when I drive even to work in the morning, envy the guy at 9 o'clock, maybe it's his day off, who's jogging along. I'm like, gee whiz, where do you get the time to be jogging along at 9 o'clock? And then it even gripes me further when I come back home at 6 in the evening, he's jogging again. Like, wow, he has created the time to do what he wants to do. And that's what you and I need to achieve, where you create your world rather than the world having created you and the space and time you're in. And that allows you to step away from burnout, the work pressure, and you create, I'll say it this way, a work environment that you want rather than one that's thrusted upon you. All right.